piece of advice I have for someone trying to succeed in the film industry or any creative space is, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong.
That's right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Theory of Blind Man. What a great way to start. What a great song to start with. I've got a great panel with me tonight, and it's going to be an exciting show. I'm pretty stoked about it. We got returning champion Jesse Anderson from Illegally Cited joining us. Not talking about gaming tonight, surprisingly. Nope. We're going to be talking about the employment and blind field services specifically. As soon as I can get my... Okay. Anyway, Jesse Anderson, how you doing, sir?
I am doing pretty good.
Thank you for... I don't know. I keep getting this internet is not fast enough error with Ecamm, and it's getting kind of annoying. But anyway, I don't know if you guys just noticed this on stream if you're watching, but if you notice a difference, let me know. Next up, we got Jason from Independently Blind, who was recently hired. So again, congratulations for that, which was the comment you ignored me last night. That's the comment I was talking about, dick.
Oh, it wasn't. Oh, it wasn't.
And we've got Dani Marie of Dani Marie AUC. Autism.
Reverse.
Nah, dude, that was so nuclear.
I know, right? Nuclear. We were talking about geek stuff, tech stuff earlier, so automatically I went through autism. But anyway, albinism up close. Welcome, Dani. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Anyway, so tonight's topic, as you can tell, we're going to be talking about employment and how blind people, yes, can get jobs. Disabled people can get jobs. But we do have quite a task ahead of us, as anybody looking for employment knows, that if you do have a disability, it's a little bit more difficult. And on top of that, you could say race could play a part. So automatically you've got looks involved. So that's kind of where we have Dani come in with albinism. So we're talking about that whole thing. And Jesse is here to give us some facts that a lot of people don't know. So we'll be talking about that. So before we get started, really, we'll do a little introduction of everybody so everybody gets familiar with who is here. So Jesse, why don't you go ahead and lead us off since you're going to be the headliner for tonight.
Okay, well, like you said, I'm Jesse Anderson, and for the past a little bit over 10 years now, I've been working at State Services for the Blind here in Minnesota, the rehab agency for the blind. Prior to that, I worked as a technology trainer, and I've kind of bounced around to a couple of different jobs before this one. So, but yeah, I've been working in the technology industry, technology field, and blindness field largely for the past, a decade and a half. So,
wow, much longer than I was actually thinking about. And this is awesome because we've been waiting to do a show like this for quite some time, really getting to the nitty gritty of the facts behind, because there's a lot of people out there, especially blind community, will say like blind people can't get jobs, blind people can't get jobs, or blind people can get jobs just fine, but we don't really have anybody on the inside. So this is cool. So thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Jason Smith, also known as the Blind Jedi, aka Independently Blind, and you're watching Theory of a Blind Jedi. Now, I'm all those things and probably much more, but I just recently got hired at Valley Center for the Blind here in California, Fresno, California, where I'm operating the first call center for this area for the blind. So it's kind of a monumental step for our community here in the Central Valley.
Awesome. And least but not last, Dani, the autism up close. How you doing?
I don't know if I should reply to that. But anyway, I'm Danielle, Dani Marie AUC, and currently I keep children in my home, but I'm looking for better full-time employment. And right now I've applied for a job that would be perfect that I've been waiting to open for a while, and in that whole waiting stage. So we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us. And just really quick, Blind Toes, welcome. Average Blind Guy, welcome. And Shine,
Hey.
welcome. And they're already gambling. Nice. Anyway, so where shall we start? We've got, different aspects. Jesse, fully and over fully employed. Dani, you're looking for a job, and Jason just got hired. So we got a nice little perspective on of all the trials and tribulations that goes into finding work. And actually, Jesse, I kind of want to ask you first, how did you get into the work that you do for Blind Field Services?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's not a field that I necessarily, went to school for or anything like that. I kind of just, I don't know, stumbled my way into it because, I got my bachelor's degree. I got my degree in information technology. And so after that, it's like, okay, well, then I'm going to go look for a job. Mm-hmm. And that was the hardest time, is right after my undergrad degree, because I was unemployed for 3.5 years after graduation, and it wasn't for lack of trying. And that's the thing that I really want to get across to people, is that, is it going to be harder to get a job, to find a job as a blind person or a visually impaired person or a person with a disability? Yeah, more than likely it probably will be. We will definitely have to work probably 2-3 times as hard as anyone else to get the same, to get half of what wear getting, work twice as hard for half the battle. But after I graduated from my undergrad degree, like I said, I was applying for jobs, and it was really frustrating because I was applying for jobs all the time. And this was back when companies were actually, courteous enough to let you know that you didn't get the job. They would send you rejection letters. And I always joke back then, because you don't really find out now, unfortunately. No. And I kind of joked back then, but it was so frustrating because I said, I got so many of these rejection letters, I could probably wallpaper my apartment. I would get in-person interviews. I would get phone interviews. And I don't know if it was, legally, of course, with the ADA and stuff, you can't say, the Americans with the Disabilities Act, you can't tell someone, well, we didn't hire you because of your disability. They'll make up some other excuse or whatever. But right. I know that had to come into play a few different times. You could just sort of tell. But, and there was a couple that, of course, just really didn't end up matching up. But it was really frustrating because at the time, it's like, even just to earn some money, I was, I would have worked at McDonald's, just to pay the bills. I didn't want to sit on SSI. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be able to support myself. I had a little bit of credit card debt. I had, a few student loans, that kind of a thing. And so I wanted to start, making money and getting out of debt and supporting myself. But I couldn't even get these entry level jobs. And it was just it was so demeaning or depressing in a way. I was paying some of my bills with my credit cards just so I could live independently because, growing up, I grew up on a farm, which was cool, except, my parents were great. I mean, they're like, well, if you need to come home and stay with us, you can until you find something. I said, well, thank you. But, being blind or being low vision, I had to live in at least a semi metro area or at least a town so that if I were to get a job interview, I would have a chance to be able to try to get there, for transportation wise. So yeah, it was a rough time. And so what I ended up doing is, I was during these interviews a couple of years in, I was getting these, I was getting the question, well, what if, they look at my resume and well, I see you haven't worked in a while or gone to school. What have you been doing for the last a couple of years? I said, well, I've been really looking for work. I take a couple little odd jobs, spot jobs here and there, but I was getting that question all the time. So I decided, well, okay, while I'm looking, I'm going to start part-time. I'm going to I worked on my master's degree, and then coincidentally about a semester in, it wasn't a permanent job, but I did get a full-time, basically a volunteer AmeriCorps position, which, gave me a little bit of income, but trust me, you're not going to be rich doing AmeriCorps. But I wanted, and that's the thing, is people have to be able to, in the beginning especially, be willing to accept like volunteer positions or lower entry level jobs, because it's all about the experience. Like you can't get the job without the experience, but you need experience. It's like kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
So I did that. I did that for a year, which then led me to my technology instructor job. I ended up moving down to Florida for 3.5 years because, hey, that's where the job was. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not going through what I did before. I guess I'm moving to Florida. And then I was fortunate enough to hear about the position that I have now as an assistive technology specialist. And so I decided to come back up here. It was just way, way too hot and humid all the time in Florida. So, winters suck up here too, but it was nice to kind of come back up to where I'm more familiar with again. Mm. So, but yeah, since then I've been working at my current job, and basically, through the technology piece, doing technology assessments with clients and job site assessments. If somebody gets an offer, and maybe they need their site tested to see if whatever software they're using is compatible, or if the employer has a question, so we work in that area. And then I shifted a couple of years ago more toward working with, I don't do so much of the adult stuff quite as much, but I'm working more with transition age students. So, basically getting their skills, their technology and their skills ready while they're still in high school or early college. Mm. So that's kind of my history so far.
Awesome. Yeah, there's something that you mentioned in there, which kind of directly relates to Jason's story, which many people have heard. And he had a well-paying career, and because of his blindness, because the Star Guards, he actually lost that job. So Jason, I want you to fill us in on a little bit about that, and then kind of go into your new work.
Well, so being diagnosed with Star Guards at the age of 16, I was already working at a grocery store as what they call a courtesy clerk, also known as a bagger. So I was already into that industry. That particular store that I worked for obviously knew right away when I was diagnosed that I had an eye condition. But it really didn't make no difference because of the level that I was at. I quickly learned that I needed to keep that to myself. And this is before I knew anything about the ADA. I just kind of didn't want to disclose that, hey, I had this vision problem. And at that time, at the beginning stages of Star Guards, it wasn't as big of a deal as it is today, obviously. But, I found myself just, the ups and downs of life, but I found myself working for a bigger company later on and was just learning my way. You just kind of become a creature of habit. You got muscle memory. You got just normal things that you would do. There was plenty of people that were close to me in that company that knew that I had an eye problem, but most upper management did not know. I worked my way up the ranks. Next thing you know, I was managing myself and making really good dinero. It didn't come to the point for the WIC program. For anybody, I don't know if there's WIC in every state. I don't know if that's just a California thing or not, but WIC stands for Women and Children. So basically, there are these tickets that they give women who are pregnant or have newborn children up to the toddler age, where they give milk, cheese, cereal, beans, eggs, things like that. And each ticket had, a certain amount and certain sizes. Well, I've been doing this for years, so I had the ticket itself I had memorized. The problem with the ticket program is a lot of the times the top of the check would get faded. And it got to the point where I noticed that it was getting harder and harder for me to read, on the top what the actual dates and expiration dates were. So in a course of about a month, I took 2 bad checks, unintentionally, obviously. Mm-hmm. So even from a management level, they call you in and they're like, hey, we need to know why this is happening. And, after 3, we have to terminate you by federal law. Well,
Rough.
I freaked out, right?
I'm blind.
So the first
blind.
that's the first time my whole life that I didn't know I was blind. Really, I just said I have an eye problem, and they said, well, get glasses, and I said, no, I have an eye disease, right? And I
Right.
said I have Stargardt's. I can't wear glasses. The look on their face was, priceless in its own way. So that started me down this road of figuring out, I got to go back to an eye specialist I hadn't been to in nearly 14 years it was. And that's the first time I ever heard the word legally blind. And the eye specialist is like, you're legally blind. And I was like, huh? To me, that was like a foreign word, I'm like, what do you mean? I could see. I was just like every other uneducated person that we get mad at sometimes, but in reality, they just don't know. I didn't know. I had an eye disease and I didn't know. So I had to go back with this information, letting them know that I was legally blind and yada, yada, yada. So it just spurred up this huge investigation. I had HR, you had all these union reps coming in. I wasn't union, but they did offer me a union rep because I guess they felt sorry for me. And it lasted probably around 3 months. This investigation went. I wasn't allowed no more. I wasn't allowed on the forklift. I wasn't allowed in the register, but they had to keep me at my management level. So it started becoming a big problem. And the deciding factor was, okay, we're not going to fire you. However,
just don't do anything.
We have to make you a courtesy clerk.
Whistler, you've got two Jason's video streams in the live stream, by the way. I don't know how.
Double the pleasure, double the fun.
I don't know why or how.
I can't see that on my end.
That's interesting.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. That's what showed on my
No,
live
it looks
stream.
okay here.
Okay.
It's weird. Okay, well, we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I know, I've only got one
Yeah.
input from each camera, so.
Yeah.
So did your doctor refer you to your eye doctor? Did they refer you to a VR agency, a vocal rehab agency, or a blindness agency, so you could have someone maybe like myself come in and go, oh, well, we could save your job. Here's a thing like a CCTV or something that would help you? Or did
That's
they not?
an interesting thing. I didn't find out about vocational rehab until after I chose to leave the job because and I don't know if you're
that happens a lot.
It happens a lot. I mean,
yes,
it happens a lot. And being in California and if you guys are familiar with California, I was working out of the Bay Area, so prices are not cheap in the Bay Area. And I was a single father. I had at the time an 8-year-old son that I was raising on my own. So I'll go ahead and disclose a little bit of it. I was making $80,000 a year. And in the Bay Area, that sounds like today that would be great. Like where I'm at right now in the Valley, if I had $80,000 a year, I'd be a lot better off than I am even now. But in the Bay Area, that was average. That was okay. Right. So giving up that job to go down to just maybe $1 above minimum wage, I believe at the time was $5.75 an hour.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard, even from people coming in eventually who do find out about like SSB, State Services for the Blind. It's like I've heard your story all too many times, unfortunately, and that's why I think it's important to even, to kind of reach out to, eye doctors, just regular family eye doctors or ophthalmologists or whatever, just so that they should have, they should be able to refer and know that each state does have a VR agency. Some of them don't have blindness specific ones, like North Dakota, where I grew up, did not. It was all disabilities in one. But just having, when you come in to get your eyes checked and go, oh, they tell you that you're legally blind. One of the first things they should do is let you know about that type of service.
That's the biggest thing that I've noticed, because I used to do a lot of volunteer work at blind centers, both in Sacramento and Sonoma County, is that people had no idea about, we call it Department of Rehab or Blind Field Services now. They just had no idea. It's like the doctors say, okay, you're blind. Now what? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to actually start going, and there's so many doctors and so many doctors' offices, but if you just get
right.
For example, Kaiser is huge out here. And that would be an excellent place to start. And that's actually where I heard about Department of Rehab from, was my retina specialist from Kaiser. So if we can get to It comes down to us too. Like, yeah, maybe after the fact, but for us to go back to the doctors and say, hey, just so you know,
Right.
we have assistance.
And at this time too, the internet wasn't even. I mean, the internet was around. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but it wasn't what the internet is today. So it's not like I could have went back home and just Googled it.
2800
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? If my phone could dial it up fast enough, maybe I could have researched something on AOL. But at that time, it was just it was real basic. You know, I mean, my phone didn't even have a cover. It wasn't a flip phone. It was just this piece of metal bar. That was it was like a candy bar, exactly. So, you know, I've dealt with this, and there's a lot of things even that I barely found out about 4 years ago, maybe. You know, for example, that this whole time when I was raising my son on my own, just on SSDI, that I could have got a part-time job if I could have found one, right? To help support my son and myself to actually have a better life than we did. I was always like, you know, trying to do odd jobs. I worked under the table a few times and nothing steady. Yeah. I've been denied management jobs that I was overqualified for. Yep. You know, once they saw the portable magnifier, they're like, what is that? And I'm like, well, this is how I'm going to read tags and stuff. They're like, no, you got to work the register. And I'm like, well, that could be an issue. So, you know, being where I'm at today, 4 years ago, finding the Valley Center for the Blind, my skill levels have grown. YouTube, technology, computers, the things that I'm able to do now, you know, even with the skill that I believe I have now, which is not, I mean, I'm by all means not a technology instructor, far from it. But, you know, the fact that I actually have computer skills now, though, to go along with my management background, you think that I would be able to find something, but not. But, you know, the Valley Center for the Blind has been able to, you know, land this contract. And, you know, I was one of the few that were chosen to have an opportunity to launch this thing off, you know, and I take it very seriously. And even though right now it's temporary, it's not just about me having a job right now and getting a paycheck temporarily. It's about the doors that this may open for the people here in my community, from all the way from Bakersfield all the way down to Madera, where we're at, which is probably a good, I don't know, 200 or 300 mile radius, that may have an opportunity for this to grow into something to give other people opportunity to have employment. Because what I'm tending to find out, even listening to you, Jeff, I mean, or Jesse, my bad, I apologize. No problem. You know, to be able to have the opportunities that I see a lot of people get is through blind centers or through the community, and having opportunities through there to get these jobs. Whether it's a ILS instructor or volunteering at the Blind Center to hone in your skills. No other company right now is stepping up saying, you know, hey, we want to take you on. You know, it's a lot of these call centers right now.
I noticed that a lot too. Yeah, there's this kind of weird like perpetual circle where you go through you go through some kind of blind services, and then you get a job in blind services who help other go to blind. You know, it's just this circle. I noticed that too.
That's what I tried too, because I too am a certified access technology instructor through ATI, and I was told that, oh yeah, so many people, there's a sticker on my Akai that I don't like. Anyway, shiny things. Woo, shiny things. What the hell was I saying?
You got your ATI. They were saying that a lot of people.
Oh yes. Welcome to Autism Up Close. I got a little distracted. So after I graduated,
you gotta itch that itch.
I gotta itch the scratch.
Do not.
Because
you
it's
need to quit.
Nuclear.
I hate that I told you those things.
It's a nuclear.
Those are personal things.
Danny, I told you I was gonna have fun with it tonight.
Those are personal things about me that I told you.
So after getting certified as a technology instructor, you know, I spent years and years and years applying to, I don't know if I should say their names, but you know, blind centers, adaptive technology companies and whatnot. Like there's a couple places that offer services to where you can purchase the equipment and then they'll set it up for you, type of places. But it wasn't until I started doing the independent contracting work when I started really landing the jobs. So I received no help as far as like from blind not schools, but you know, blind centers for the blind, whatever you want to call them. no matter how many times I said, "Oh yeah, like we've got job openings, you should apply," so I would, no call back, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had the opposite experience as people getting employed within the blind community, so to speak. Like even then, I had to make my own way. That's the point I'm trying to get at.
Sure.
I was also advised to apply for one of those vocational rehab jobs by someone who was a counselor, and I had the qualifications and applied. I think I applied twice and never heard back. Just nothing. Like you said, no denial, no nothing. Just,
That's interesting. So
it's frustrating.
Since that's kind of a good segue into, we'll go into your background, Dani. As far as like, what have you experienced as far as, especially when it comes to the blindness aspect of it, what have you come across maintaining, finding, or looking for jobs?
Man, so my story is so similar to what Jesse was talking about, in that I was in school, and then between school and grad school, I applied for several jobs that I met qualifications for, interviewed for a few of them, and never gotten any callbacks. So I had a lot of that experience, including the voc rehab job, where I was told by someone who worked there, "Hey, you'd be a great fit for this job. You really need to apply." And I did, and never heard anything back. So I had a lot of that. And jobs, when you're in a place like I'm at, I live in Mississippi, it's not it's not transportation heavy. So if you don't drive a car, there are only very few places you need to live. So, like, for me, I talked about this one job that I applied for, and it's a perfect job because it's regular hours. It's in an area where there are apartments nearby, and the job would allow me to afford the apartments that are actually nearby there in a downtown area. So, like, there's a real fine line for jobs that would be suitable for me to be independent, and there are not many in this city, honestly. It's a struggle.
Plus, you have also
and...
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's where, like, what brought me down to Florida is, like, I said I came from like middle of nowhereville, North Dakota, to went to college in Minnesota, and then shifted around there, kind of being unemployed for a while. I'm like, you know what? I mean, it's different if you have like a family or whatever, but like, especially since I was single, I'm like, well, guess what? If the job is somewhere, I mean, I'll look. I was looking more locally, but then I looked more nationwide because I'm like, I don't even care. I'll move wherever. I just want to find something. Like, okay, I guess we're going to Florida.
Yeah. That's part of my struggle too. Like right now I do live with my parents, but I also have a fiance who has a good job here. So moving is not really a good option. Though, everyone always just throws that out there willy-nilly. Like it's super easy and super cheap to just pick up and move. That's another thing that like really frustrates me. Like just move. Okay. Let's do the 50 things that I have to think about before I consider moving, and then the 50 things I have to think about while in the process. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about.
That sounds very familiar.
Oh yeah.
Right, I was gonna say, but I'm not. Just saying.
Just saying.
You know what I'm talking about.
And no, I wasn't trying to. I wasn't.
No,
saying,
I know you weren't.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, if you have a family and stuff, it's a lot harder to do. I
think it's great that you were able to, though. I knew you weren't saying that directed toward me. Or anything.
Sure.
It's cool. But I think that was the end of my current struggle.
Right on. Now, but also to fast forwarding to the hopefully near future, you're currently actively seeking employment. So, what are some of the maybe anxieties or pressures that you're feeling with your certain health conditions or eye conditions or whatever it may be going into a job?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this job is a bank job, and it is specifically a computer job, which I'm very familiar with computer programs, software. I'm very good with that. So I'm not worried about the actual work. So at least I have that going for me. But the very first thing is, one, transportation. I'm very lucky. I know a couple people who work in the same place. It's a bank. And who I could probably get to give me a ride. So that's like the first huge hurdle. But even before that is the interview. And I mean, I have to get to the interview, and I currently have, I keep a kid at my house, so I currently have that to work around. But also going into the interview, so albinism is pretty obvious. If you guys aren't familiar with it, in my case, I'm at the very pale end of the spectrum, so I am super pale. I have super white hair, and I have super light eyes. They're kind of purple. But I also have nystagmus, where the eyes shake. You guys are probably familiar with that.
Yep,
And
I have it.
I'm pretty sure I've heard a couple stories, actually, I'm not pretty sure, but I've definitely heard a couple stories of people who have been accused of being on drugs because of nystagmus.
Yep.
And like that's an issue in itself because people might look at you and think, "Oh, what is she on?" You know, like what's wrong with her eyes? You know, just lots of stuff like that to deal with that is pretty like central in the blind community with various eye conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So we all have that to worry about. But for me, I think once I get past the interview, if they actually hire me, I'm overqualified. That's another thing that you mentioned. And I have a master's degree. This job requires a bachelor's degree. It's an entry-level bachelor's degree job, though. But, you know, that whole overqualification thing really is making me nervous because I'm so worried they're going to see that and they're going to think I want more money or anything like that. And I don't, honestly. I really would just like the job.
Right. Exactly.
That's where it really comes down to the interview process of just being able to relate. Like, you're just looking for the job.
Yeah, there was a cover letter as well, so I was able to indicate that in the cover letter in a less direct way.
Yeah,
so hopefully that works out.
It depends too on people have different thoughts and different philosophies on when and how you should disclose your disability, especially if it is noticeable. But one of the things that I found that sort of helped me out is one of the things that I would kind of change, or that I had started to change as I was, getting rejected over and over and over again, is because, my vision impairment is noticeable. I don't use a cane all the time, but sometimes I will. I don't have a dog, but I guess you can just tell because, like I said, I have this nystagmatism as well. And I guess I'll kind of look off to the side a little bit, just the way my vision is, and so it's noticeable. We sound
very similar, by the way.
Okay.
Similar stages.
Yep. And so basically, I just kind of ran with it. I said, well, okay, you're going to notice anyway. And so one of the strategies that I did, because like I said, I guess people don't encounter other blind people, like fully sighted people don't, we're kind of a low incidence population in a way.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would do is I would bring, back then we didn't have iPhones because, we didn't. But I would bring my laptop because I knew there was going to be, even if they can't say anything, they go, oh boy, is this going to cost us a lot of money? Or can he do the job? Is he going to be too slow? I've heard variants of that before. So what I would end up doing is I would have my laptop with me, and I would, we'd go through the interview, and then I would just kind of, when they say, do you have any other questions or anything like that? I would say, well, here's the thing. I know it's probably on your mind. And, I was applying for technology jobs, obviously. And I would just say, here's the thing is, yeah, I am legally blind. And I do use some assistive technology, but hey, I've got my laptop right here. If you want me to prove, I can prove to you, or I can show you what it is so you understand what it is that I use and how I would do it. And, think of tasks that you would do at that job. So if it's like an office type job, like, have a couple of Word documents that you can quick edit. Have, if you can access their internet, think of a couple of, not just simple websites, but think of a couple of complicated websites that you could visit and go, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to go find this product. I'm going to research it real quick. I can, I'd go by headings, or I can, do whatever it is you need to do. But the tasks that are sort of related to, showing that you're capable and can be productive at that job. And that seemed to really, I didn't necessarily do that right away, but once I started doing that, it seemed to kind of help. I don't know if it will for everybody, but that's just kind of one of the strategies that I started to take. And I've kind of told people that experience before, even, when I meet with clients and they have those types of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe it can go a long way, because I totally believe in the full disclosure of your disability, only because you're not, especially once you hit a certain stage, it's not like you're going to be able to hide it, number one. Number two,
Right.
It opens the door for you to showcase, because I think that's I don't know what percentage to put on it, so I don't want to put one on it, but most of the time, let's say, they question your ability to accomplish the task that they want to give you. So if you could show
Absolutely.
them the skill set, the other side to it is, how is the rest of the employees going to feel when you walk in with a cane or this assistive technology, and they start to, get a little scared of how to approach you, and they start to feel uncomfortable, and you start to be treated differently. Then HR issues come up because people are kind of getting weirded out, and so I know there's so many issues that we have to face, and it's that's one focus that I'd like for our community to focus on, is ways that we could work through that.
And a couple of things that I think really help with that is, the nice thing is that, it used to be where, all this technology and stuff was really expensive. And, it's gone down in price in some ways. And the really nice thing is that there's actually the built-in accessibility for things like Windows 10. You got narrator and magnifier, which are actually getting quite good.
Yeah,
You
I was going to
have,
point that out
Zoom
too.
Zoom and VoiceOver on iOS and the Mac. So pretty much all of these technologies, you have at least a starting base where, maybe somebody does need something a little bit more like JAWS or Zoom Text or something like that. But at the very least, there's a lot of free stuff that can actually help. And the other part that I would say is, that's the other thing, is like, no matter what happens, like whatever job you're applying for, like, I mean, you have to really, I can't stress enough, like, not just like know your technology, be it, mainstream technology like Word and Office and things like that, but also the assistive technology that you do, it's in the way that you present yourself, being confident in the interview, and like, getting to the job site, or getting to the interview, and maybe coming in alone, like, oh, I'm not coming in with a guide, so it doesn't look like I'm dependent on somebody, like those kind of things. Just it's weird, but it's those types of things that we have to kind of contend with, just to basically prove that, it's weird, because we're either thought of as incompetent or lazy, or we're like a mere, oh my God, you're so inspirational because you got out of
Yes.
bed and dressed yourself. I mean, it's one or
I
the
know,
other.
right?
How do you tie your shoes?
Have you seen the movie Daredevil? You remind me of the Daredevil.
I've heard that one. That's so great.
That's why I've kind of developed that little kind of sarcastic edge, and that's why a while back I came up with the whole illegally sighted thing, because you could, I got tired of just saying, oh, my vision is bad or whatever, and so people say, well, what's your vision issue, or what vision thing do you have? I'm like, well, I'm illegally sighted, and you would just always see the people pause, and they had to figure it out, like, what? And it was priceless, and I love it.
Love it.
And so
It's great.
I do enjoy the name.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
I love the direct approach too.
If I'm legally blind, I'm obviously illegally sighted then. So
Yes.
Yeah. Going back to the skill sets too, and you're talking about, pulling out your assistive technology. What I've discovered, what one screen reader can do, another screen reader can't. And what that screen reader can't do, another one can, and so forth.
yes,
I've gotten into, you brought up Amazon earlier. Amazon sucks with voiceover on OS X, but it's fine with NVDA. It's okay with JAWS. So the more screen readers you have under your belts going into proving yourself, the proving grounds for the process, the more likely to you'll be noticed.
excellent point. I should have mentioned that too. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what we're finding. If you're looking at a job where you're going to be doing anything office-y or like computer related, absolutely no more than one screen reader, because I jump between 3 or 4 of them on a regular basis. So
Yep. I have to do that every time so I set my broadcast up on my Mac. I have to go to JAWS or actually NVDA ends up being easier. Okay, so check this out. So I have to go to JAWS and pull up the YouTube video so I can monetize it, because there's that new step to pick out which are the topics, and then you can monetize it. But if I want to change the category of the video itself, I have to use NVDA. So right there, I'm using 3 screen readers just to get my video published for you guys.
It's absurd.
Oh yeah,
It's absurd.
Yeah, and I've noticed that going into this, you know, my instructor, average blind guy, by the way, we were talking and we were hoping that possibly I could use the Mac, and I gotta have the voiceover feature to help me out in a bind. But unfortunately, the systems that they use is only PC. So I've been on a PC for the past 2 weeks, which is fine, because it's given me a new found respect for the PC, especially magnifier, because obviously I can't even use zoom text on it. So I've been using the magnifier, and because I don't know JAWS, I have to use the vision that I have to make it happen. But it's encouraged me to know that in a pinch, right, I could just turn on the magnifier and use a PC. But I have this newfound yearning now, especially because there's 3 other people in the office that use JAWS. I want to learn it. I don't, you know, I now I'm like, well, maybe I should dabble into JAWS a bit more, you know, because I not only do I want to help myself, but the ability to help others, because it's kind of in my nature. That's what I like to do, is help others. So I'm like, I need to learn this stuff. So
and
just really quick,
go ahead.
I will say that things that I find I can't do with JAWS, I can always do with NVDA. So as it is currently, I haven't found anything that I can't do with NVDA that I can do with anything else.
Yeah, JAWS. There are a couple little bits and pieces where JAWS can actually be helpful, but I primarily use NVDA. And the best thing is you can just practice that and learn that because it's free, so you can just download it. But like, that's a really good point too that Jason brought up, is that one of the things when I meet with, I like to find out what people are interested in doing during a tech assessment. You know, what kind of job are they looking into, or what would they like to do? You know, because sometimes like, well, I don't think I can do this because blind people can't do that. I'm like, no, just shoot. You know, tell me what you'd like to do, and there might be a way to do it. But if you are in a business setting, I do kind of warn people, like, the Mac is great. You know, they really started the built-in accessibility stuff and getting it right earlier, but Windows is really catching up, and even I think surpassing now in some areas with their recent couple Windows updates.
Oh, yeah.
But most people, most businesses, I will tell people, if you're looking at an office job, I would definitely recommend becoming and familiarizing yourself with Windows, because I would say 95%, if not more, are going to likely operate in a Windows environment. And cheap plug, you might want to check out a couple of my recent videos, because I do a thing on like the Windows magnifier and low vision tools in Windows 10. Cheap plug.
I'm gonna be checking that out later. It's okay.
Yeah, it was
Well, I
funny,
think
'cause
too,
just the other night, Danny was mentioning something. I was live, and you said to look at something. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, when I was going through all the settings, and I was live, I was noticing all these new additions to Windows accessibility. I was like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't remember that being there. I was just like, huh.
Oh yeah.
I gotta
There's
dive
a lot
into
in there
this.
now.
Windows 10, what I will say, I'm full disclosure, I am doing a little bit of work with Microsoft on the side as part of their low vision advisory board, and they're taking this accessibility thing really seriously lately, and they're adding new features. And like, you know, we're, as part of this little group, we're kind of really trying to help improve, and like they're asking for suggestions. So we have, blind people in a narrator group. There's the low vision team that I'm on work with a lot more like the magnifier and other like high contrast and like low vision settings. There's a lot in there. Like in the latest release, you can kind of do like you don't even have to have narrator running, which narrator is becoming actually quite decent in itself. But magnifier, you can, let's say you're just looking at something and you want to read like a long document. You don't want speech all the time, but you just want to be able to, I came across a long email or a long web page, article on a web page.
Oh, read screen.
All you got to do, all you got to do is just hold Alt Control, click at the beginning of a paragraph, and boom, it's reading. I would highly
perfect
I'd
for
recommend
me.
running in Edge. It'll probably work the best, the new Chromium version, because it's a little flaky in Chrome right now. But if you use like the new version of Edge, it works pretty great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's
And I did
color
notice
and
too.
mouse options and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I did notice too, when it comes to the challenge of learning any type of device, YouTube has really helped me out in that area, just because I don't know how many times, probably within the last even 3 or 4 months, Whistler and we've troubleshooted I don't know how many different issues when it comes to even streaming or just other devices, but it's helped me learn the Mac. And I think it gave me the confidence when I went in and started to get on the PC. I was real like, okay, I know the layout of iOS is simplified, and I know that my experience from Microsoft and Windows prior was, wow, this is intense. Like it's all over the place, and I was real nervous, but I've been able to troubleshoot a few things. I've been able to navigate myself around it and find different things. So whether you're a book learner or you're more of a hands-on person, I think the challenge out there for you would be, create tasks that are going to push you. Find something that you want to learn, that you want to do, and then pick the device to learn it on. And I think you'll learn it faster.
Yeah. Yep.
And that, I mean, Google, people think, it's like, oh, well, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, I know some of it, but guess what? Google is your friend. I mean,
Agreed.
I can't tell you how many times I will just Google, or use YouTube to look up something. It's like, and I even when I used to teach, I'm like, people would say, teach me how to do this exact task. Like step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. No, I refuse to teach that way, because you're not learning anything. You're just memorizing a sequence of commands. And so, it's like, okay, you're going by heading because you're wanting to do this, or you're looking for an edit field because you want to do this.
You
and
need
so,
the concept.
you really need to know what and why and how it is what you're doing.
Because once you start learning by sequence, there's always going to be something that messes up that sequence. And you need
things are
so
updated
true.
every nanosecond now.
Yeah.
So it's going to change.
Yep. Cool channel name. I want to get this statement out there. I can't remember if they said they were a she or he. I guess it doesn't matter. Cool channel name says, I think people are frightened by blind people doing their job.
I would agree to some extent. I've heard a lot of people say, like, man, I would rather, and this is just really bizarre and weird, but I've heard people say literally, I would rather get cancer before I would go blind.
What the heck?
People say
it's
that.
so crazy. And there's, there's so much we can do. And that's why there's so much that, we really have to, like I said, we can't just sit there and expect for things to come to us and say, well, why can't I get a job? You have to work like hell for it. Yeah. Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be frustrating? Absolutely. But the problem is, it's a sighted world, and we have to do what we can to be included. It's just the way it is. And there's so many people who, it's, yes, we need to be skilled. We need to, keep proving ourselves or whatever. But the other side of it is, there's a lot of people who just really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Bubble.
Well, yeah, but it's low expectations. Again, it's low expectations. Like, oh, well, a blind person can't do this. I can't imagine how I would do it if I close my eyes. So you can't do it. And so yeah, it's a lot of we're fighting a lot of the, we have to educate as well, unfortunately. But
and that's when we really start hearing a lot. Like you mentioned it earlier too, and I didn't say anything yet, but when people come to us and say, oh, you're so inspirational. Oh, how do you do this? Well, this is why, people. This is exactly why.
Well, I think that it goes right into, the educate part. And that's kind of, one of my driven focuses on Independently Blind is to educate. And and this is the hardest thing for us to do for a lot of us, because a lot of us, we tend to get fearful ourselves, or we get a bit of anxiety, and I'm one that gets anxiety in crowds and what have you. But I totally encourage the community to really find the drive to get out there in the world and do the things that you always wanted to do or the things that you used to do, I'm constantly thinking of ways that I can get out there and do things that, I know I can do maybe at a different level, and have my cane with me, because the more people notice us, the more questions are asked, is the best way for us to really get the word out there. I know a ton of people in the blind community that do motivational speaking, and they get called to these certain secluded areas, but you're still not getting noticed. They're not airing this on TV. We need to get out there in the malls. We need to get out there in the crowds and say, wow, look what that guy's doing. And not that we're looking for the pat on the back, like, "Data boy," but more I'm looking for, like, how are you doing that?
Right.
Oh, I'm glad you asked.
That's exactly
because
right.
I could share with you the spectrum, because that's what we need to teach the community. It's not so much, everybody knows what blind is, right? The word that their version of the word blind, right? But when you look at it from a whole spectrum standpoint, everybody's like, huh? You can see, you're not blind. If we go out and we have those conversations.
Oh yes, it's low vision, absolutely.
And then someone walks into the workplace and they say, hey, that guy, and then someone that's had this interaction can be like, no, he'll be all right. I've seen a guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to create those conversations, man.
And if nothing
I
else,
have a good story for this.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
When I was learning to use a cane in college, I actually had someone come into the support services office and not accuse me directly, but accuse me indirectly to the counselor that worked there that I was faking being blind.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
I've heard that before too.
It's not the only time it's happened either, but it was just profound. Like, why would anyone fake being legally
exactly blind? Oh yeah, exactly. Why? I want to fake having trouble with this, that, and the other thing.
I want to live my life that way, where I have to do 50 steps to do the same thing that it takes you one to do, where I have to think ahead, like 3 days as opposed to your 2 hours to go out, or just all those little things that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I will say
there's so many other things.
I will say this though, it's being totally blind. Not only do we get to save on electricity, like light bulbs and whatnot, but we don't have to buy the paper bag after a nasty date.
Oh, there it is. How long have we been on air? What time is it?
It's been almost an hour.
Wow, dude. A whole 60 minutes before you made I don't know what to call that.
I don't either. I'm not touching it. You can have it, Jason.
Not at all.
That's awesome, bro. I'm proud of you.
Crazy Blind Man, welcome. I caught your message the other night, and I didn't want you to think I was ignoring you, but I did see your message. But welcome, Crazy Blind Man.
Welcome, Crazy Blind Man.
And if nothing else, too, it's kind of a thing of, like I said, it's a quality of life thing and kind of a self-esteem thing. Because, like I said, when I graduated college and I was unemployed, I felt miserable a lot of the time because I'm like, man, I don't have any self-worth because I'm not really contributing anything to society. I'm not, it's not just the money. It's not just the working, but it's like, no, I mean, I want to, on my deathbed, I want to look back at my life and go, hey, I actually, I could be proud of what I accomplished. I helped people, or I was able to accomplish something. And, I didn't want to just be sitting there collecting a check every month.
Exactly.
Part of my goal for my YouTube channel, so support me, okay?
It was kind of funny.
That's okay too.
Going to when I lost my sight, I was actually going to college as a graphic engineer, graphic designer, graphical marketing, that sort of thing. So it was a highly visual world. I was deep into like Adobe, Photoshop, after work, everything, and so. I think it was like maybe the second semester in, second semester in, I was like, boom, this happens. I was like, holy, that was a complete life shift to go from something so visual to something so auditory. And it was,
and it could be hard to get over.
It was tough for sure, but so I never really had direction for years after that. Like, okay, so now what? I never really put myself in the blind bubble pity pot, like, oh, poor me. I was just like, now I was searching. I was like, now what? Not, oh, poor me, now what? Just, I don't know.
Well, right. I mean, that's the thing is a lot of people, like I said, even if they go to their eye doctor or people they know, it's like sometimes it's just people don't discover services that'll help them. I mean, One of my favorite things about my job is when I meet people and I do a tech assessment. They come in, they're like, "Why am I here? My counselor told me, they referred me to you." And it's like, why I'm here. I'll look at it, but like, whatever. And then we get to talking a little bit, and we develop a little bit of rapport. And like I said, I find out what they're kind of interested in doing. And say, well, I guess I could be in customer service, or I could do the kind of quote unquote blindy jobs. But I said, oh no, like what is it that what would you if disability weren't an issue, or what would you like to do? And a lot of times, they'll say something that's, pretty practical. I mean, because there are blind people that do a lot, everything.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite parts is, after the assessment and a little bit down the road, they see some of the technology and go, oh, I could learn that. Wait, you mean I can actually read again? Or, oh, I can, go travel again. I can use my smartphone. I can just use my computer. I can communicate with people, get rid of this isolation and just being able to see how they just, they kind of just transform and be like, oh, wait, I can live my life. This isn't the end of the world. And so that part of it is I do like.
Yeah. Yeah, for me personally, when I was going through this, and it wasn't really, like I said earlier, I had the services. Fortunately, one of my eye doctors had actually told me about Department of Rehab, but it wasn't necessarily now what as in how am I going to do things. It was my life, like now what with my life. And because this is really cool though, because of my sight loss, I delved deeper into much more intellectual things that I've always been interested in, but just never did.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess you can say. And ever since I lost my sight, a completely different person. Anybody that knows me for life will tell you that, whoa, shell just got broke. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely an opportunity to reinvent yourself, and it does give us opportunity to not only reconnect with ourselves. When you were a kid, you just knew what you liked, man. Whatever made you happy, right? It was so easy. You know, you didn't go into a toy store going, I don't like that toy, but I'm going to buy it because it's a toy. You looked for the toy that you loved, or the toy that you liked, and the toy that you wanted, and that's what drew your attention. And I think we get caught up, especially as you get into high school and you get all these distractions and everything starts to change around you, and you get caught up into the society part of the world, and it kind of drives you away sometimes and you lose yourself. And when you have a disability, that just piles on it. But the opportunity that I found, over the course of the last 15 years is an opportunity to reinvent myself, to find myself again and say, you know what, this is what I was meant for. And now I can focus on that.
And one thing I would also say, it's a great point. And like, I was thinking about that, and even earlier when you guys were talking, and, if you're not sure what you want to do, and kind of, just kind of pick something that you might be really interested in, and just, hey, you know what? You fail at things sometimes. God knows I failed endless amount of times so far in my life, but like you learn from it and you go do something else, because like, just diving into something totally new. Like when I started, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, if you would have told me, oh, you're going to be, doing YouTube videos every week and streaming and getting into game accessibility advocacy. I mean, just a little thing of starting this YouTube channel in 2012, it was something that I hadn't planned on. It was just like, oh, I guess I'm going to try this today. And just accidentally I just stumbled into things. And from that little thing, like, I can't tell you how much that's helped me just with even like public speaking, with, confidence, but then also opportunities, like getting into the whole game accessibility and consulting advocacy thing. I've had several speaking opportunities. I've met people, I actually found a girlfriend through it. Unfortunately it didn't work out, but like, the point that is it happened. And like, I've gotten professional like consulting gigs now, and all that is just because I'm like, oh, well, let's just take a risk and try something that I've always kind of wanted to do. Like ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be in the, the game industry somehow. But I found out early in college that I suck at programming. So I'm like, well, I'm not sure what I want to do, but this is a great way to be like, hey, I can take my accessibility knowledge and experience and apply that to, hey, I can make the games more accessible, the ones that I want to play, or help other people find games they want to play. So many opportunities have just come in from just like, oh, I'm just going to dive into this random thing.
Yeah, to mold those two good points together, I think one of the big advantages for me when I went through that, you can't really say transition these days. People are like, wait, what do you mean transition? Anyway, like for me, the reason why I was so reserved and kind of shy, I guess you would say, not really outspoken like that, because everything was so visual, including the way people looked at you. And that was the big thing for me. It's like, how are they going to look at me? How are they going to react? Now, I don't give a crag. It doesn't matter.
Amen.
I know what a crag is.
It doesn't matter anymore. So I think that's another thing, another advantage. Whether a blind or low vision person recognizes it or not, I think that is part of a subconscious thing where it's like, don't worry about it, dude.
I think I have a different part of that spectrum, though, as somebody who is legally blind and not further on the spectrum. Because for me, like, I get a lot of the visual cues going on, but I can't always tell what they are. So to me, it's a little disorienting. Like, Jason, you mentioned getting anxious in crowds. Yeah. I will get that way. It's something like, say, a theme park especially is a big one, because there's just so much going on. There's so many people this way and that way, and there's rides going off everywhere. And, like, I can see some of that, but I can't see all of it. So it's almost disorienting sometimes. So
I can identify with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually what brought me to the blind center to get a cane. Was that I was at Disneyland, and I mean, I was having anxiety anyway, but my brother had this fabulous idea, because we wanted to take the monorail out here in California, right? The monorail. We're going to take it out because we were staying at the Disneyland hotel, and he's like, well, let's go to Tomorrowland. And we had gotten my mom an electric scooter from Disneyland. So he goes, let's just turn it in. You think you could push her? And he has the eye problem too, but he has a really bad back as well. So I'm like, my first instinct was say, no, Jason, just say no. Stand up for yourself. But did I? Oh no, of course. I was like, yeah, I got this. Right. So we get to Tomorrowland and the monorail shut down.
Oh no.
Oh, lovely.
So I got to wheel her out now too. And there's this area in between Tomorrowland and the Matterhorn Fantasyland where it's really dark. And it's kind of a small slope, and I literally almost took this little girl out. I almost took this little girl out.
Oh, no.
I hurt my back trying to stop the wheelchair, and when we got back, it was a really like self-revealing thing where I'm looking at myself like, dude, you need help. And literally that's exactly what it was. I needed help. And I thought I could just walk into this blind center and be like, can I get a cane? Can I buy a cane from you?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I ordered one online. So I feel you.
I didn't even do that. I didn't even know I could do that. That's how naive I was. I'm like, hey, can I, that was the first day I met Ray, the average blind guy. Because I was just like, I need a cane. Can I buy a cane?
Yeah.
Right. Just watch a YouTube tutorial.
Yeah. Speaking of Ray, he mentioned earlier that he would love to have been on this panel, and if you want to do, we can always do a second panel show, because this is a great topic. And the more people that get to see something like this, the better. So Ray, you're more than welcome to come on in the future.
Absolutely, he would be good at that. He's been working there for quite a while now, so I'm sure he has a lot of great insight. And not only insight, but how he's even grew into the position he's got now. So he'd be a great panelist. Oh.
You said panelist.
A panelist. I could have said something a lot worse.
I've been thinking about a phrase that I came up with a couple weeks ago. I think I told you, Jason, for a T-shirt idea. The world's issues would be solved if we were all blind.
Yes, we talked. You talked about that. Yes. I came up with another one today too about the 2020. Looking forward. 2020.
All the blind jokes I've seen about 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thankfully, that seems to have died down. I mean,
it does.
Well, especially with everything that's gone on this year.
Like, well, yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, Unfortunately, what replaced it wasn't really any better, but
Yeah.
2020, boy, it's been something.
Oh yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight, and we're gonna definitely do this again. You guys are all more than welcome to come back if you want to. If you guys
Always.
have any last parting words, now you can say it, Jason.
Are there any questions from the chat?
Not really questions. They've been agreeing. Blind Toes had said about, he was mentioning about California, how it is too expensive here. They've been gambling their credits away, really.
Gamble it all. You got like a
Lot of
minute
gamble
left.
alls.
Go.
Do we got gamblers? I can't even talk now.
Oh, yeah.
I've lost it. I am that
Gamblers
tired. I've been up
Anonymous?
since
Gamblers
4:30.
Anonymous, yeah.
Thank
there
you.
go.
Thanks, guys. That 4:30 time clock is kicking in right now. All right. So what can I say? Always? When I cut you off and said always? It didn't mean to cut you off. It's side notes, man. You can talk over me. Okay.
No, I was just saying this is your time to wrap up your whatever you want to say. Thank
Awesome.
you for coming. Go
Oh,
subscribe
because
to
my
Blind
show.
Jedi.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, yes, please. Please subscribe to my channel here, the Blind Jedi. I actually know it's the Theory of a Blind Jedi.
Theory
Either
of a
one. I
Blind
got all these
Jedi.
channels now because I just like taking over and
Theory of a Blind Darth, Independently Blind Jedi.
yeah, something like that.
All the above.
And I'm really proud tonight that I didn't test anything to make any mistakes on here, so it looks good on my channel. I'd like to throw that out there as well.
We're never gonna stop taking jabs at Florida. I'll tell you that much.
No, at all.
Who is?
Which, by
I'm
the
fine
way,
with that.
has been missing. I'll fill you that in later.
Okay. Yes.
Dani, why don't you go ahead since I already screwed up the order before.
You guys can check out my channel where I talk about albinism, legally blindness, not autism. Wrong A.
That's what
I
she
also. Okay, well, that's a new topic too. But yeah, come check it out. It's Dani Marie AUC. Separate words and everything, so
She just did
it's
a.
helpful.
We did a kind
I
of.
know that's not abbreviation for autism.
No. We just did a kind of a review the other night on her latest video, so go check that out. The tips and tricks of living with photophobia. That was a cool
Yeah,
video.
I'll have a new one up Monday.
Very
Every
cool.
Monday.
Right on. Jesse, sir, thank you so much for joining us. What have you got to say before we get out of here?
Well, yeah, thanks for inviting me back to the show again. And it was definitely fun to talk about all this stuff because, yes, I'm into gaming and everything, but I think like the employment and just, improving that for blind and visually impaired is definitely another passion of mine. And so, yeah, it was fun to be here. And you can find me various places on the internet. Main one is you can go to youtube.com/illegally cited. I do also have a very simple website, illegally-cited.com. I do release videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and then I do Mixer archives on Mondays. And you can follow me on Mixer as well. And I do a lot of Twitter stuff, so Twitter @BGFH79.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a blast. And if anybody, don't forget, if anybody wants to join Discord of a Blind Man, shoot me an email. I'll send you an invite. We discuss a lot of things in there, especially technology. It's been cool. So, yep. Until next time, everybody, this has been Theory of Blind Man. Don't forget, love is blind. Keep it blind.